I've had my mitts on the Google Pixel 8a for the past handful of weeks, and it's one interesting device. So find out why I think it's both excellent and underwhelming at exactly the same time in this Pixel 8a review. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and I'm sure you all know about this phone by now. It's a $499 mid-range smartphone that sits just below the regular Pixel 8 in Google's smartphone lineup. The thing about the Pixel 8a though is that it's great in a vacuum. What I mean by this is, on its own, it offers terrific value for money, from the great cameras to the long software support policy to the superb screen. But it's not on its own, and the Pixel 8a occupies a spot in one of the most competitive markets in tech, let alone smartphones. So let's talk about that. It starts as soon as you pick the phone up. It's decidedly cheap feeling with its matte plastic back. I actually think it feels cheaper than its predecessor due to this material choice, though this is a divisive opinion, and the bubbly curved lines certainly don't help matters either. Now, this isn't a horrendous compromise, and you still do get 7.5 watt wireless charging with an IP67 rating, but comparing the feeling in the hand with the similarly priced OnePlus 12R, it's a night and day difference. The 12R just feels like a phone worth twice as much. Even comparing the 8A to the regular 8, which we already did a video on by the way, so check that out if you haven't already. The 8 feels denser, it feels more solid in the hand, and that matters for a device that you might hold on to for 2, 3 or even more years. Speaking of which, the bezels around the display, they don't help things either. They're chunky, they almost make the phone feel like a toy. Combined with, again, those widely rounded corners, it just doesn't feel quite right. Now, the display itself is interesting. I love the fact they went for a flat panel, and also the fact that the display is both brighter and faster than last year, up from 90Hz to 120 and far more viewable in direct sunlight. These are noticeable and appreciated improvements. However, the on-paper specs only tell half the story. The 8A's panel is of a lower quality than the similarly spec'd Pixel 8 with poorer viewing angles, and the OnePlus 12R's display by comparison does also struggle with viewing angles, but just not as much as this. Otherwise though, the 8A's panel is sharp, it's smooth, and it is very enjoyable to play games on and watch videos with. But I think the 12R just does it better, and if you want this size and rough shape, the Pixel 8's display is just straight up better. Although performance is virtually the same between the 8 and the 8A, actually the 8A with its Tensor G3 and 8GB of RAM performs pretty well. It's smooth enough and it makes good use of that 120Hz display when navigating the OS, and it can play 3D games too if you fancy that. However, very few games are actually able to hit 120 FPS because the Tensor G3 isn't at the same kind of performance as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 that you'd find in something like the 12R. And speaking of, Pixel's reputations for slowing down after a year or so aren't completely unfounded, and while I think the 8A is more than capable enough now for most people, I would put my money on that Snapdragon being the faster long-term experience, not to mention better for gaming right now. And of course, it's a very similar story when it comes to battery life and charging. Look, the Pixel 8a, it lasted me a full day every time I used it easily, and did hit a day and 3/4 on several occasions. It also charges at 18 watts over a wire and then 7.5 without one. It's a pretty decent setup if you take it at face value, but compared to the 12R's charging at 100 watts with a substantially bigger battery and a 2-day lifespan, it's a different league. And if you're in Europe or Asia, you'll likely have access to the wide range of Xiaomi and BBK mid-ranges that compete with this and last longer and top up quicker too. But what all of those devices lack is what Google specializes in, and that's class-leading software. Now, I'm sure you all know about the Pixel 8 and 8A's long-term software support going into the next decade. That's fantastic news, not only for those looking to hold on to their phone for ages, but also the second-hand market, where buying a pre-loved device that still has some software updates in it provides fantastic value. And of course, the Magic AI tools that you'll see in the pricier Pixels can be found on the cheaper model. Magic Eraser, Audio Eraser, Magic Editor, Top Shot, and something that I've been using a lot more lately, which is the dictation tool, just to type something out in a notes document, but I can speak to the phone and it'll do it. It's very accurate, it's very seamless, and actually surprisingly good. All of these things aren't necessarily exclusive to the Pixel 8a, but are seldom found in mid-ranges as of recording. This is one area where I really can't fault the Pixel 8a. It is the best at this price point. Which is also what I'd probably say about the camera setup too. Now, Google bravely left in last year's camera hardware, so we're getting the same main ultra-wide and selfie cameras as you'll find in the Pixel 7a. However, the phone's camera was pretty good last year, and it's the same story here too. Look, it's really not as capable as the full-fat Pixel 8, but it is at its price point one of the best. It's one of the most reliable point-and-shoot packages on the market right now. There's plenty of dynamic range and sharpness across the board, just so long as you don't pinch too far in with the artificial zoom, as the image does start to break down quite heavily past about 5 times. Pinching out to the ultra-wide cameras though, there isn't a huge quality disparity in well-lit environments. In the dark, the 8A can struggle a bit with detail, but it also captures some great shots too. Portrait mode cutouts are reliable, but not 100%, and Night Sight does a great job of lifting scenes to give your darker photos some more pop. It's one of the better systems at what it does at this price point, and that's definitely worth talking about. It's fair to say the software processing is doing the heavy lifting here, but I'm not complaining about that, because it does a terrific job and offers a dependable package. In video, the Pixel 8a does a decent job, but it pales in comparison to the regular 8. Its dynamic tone mapping gives scenes some unnatural looking exposure at times, and the colours look a little off, but at this price point, I'm less worried about the minute details of video recording. The Pixel 8a is an impressive phone in a vacuum. It has great cameras, a solid screen, decent performance, and more than usable battery life. But the similarly priced OnePlus 12R does a lot of this considerably better than the 8a, maybe minus the cameras and the software. And the regular 8 does all of this better and can be found on sale at $50 to $100 more than the 8a. And that's just in the US. For those with access to the huge pool of other mid-ranges, you have even more choice, and there are some absolute gems out there in this ever-growing sector of the smartphone market. Its faster and brighter display and improved performance make it the better phone compared to last time around, but the same cameras and the price tag limit just how much I can recommend it to those with a slightly older Pixel A series. If you're already content with your 7a, I wouldn't upgrade to this one. Instead, wait to see what Google does with its next iteration of the A series. Let me know what you think about the Pixel 8a in the comments section. Are you a fan of this rounded layout? I'm just not sure about it. And the crazy rounded corners, just don't do it for me. It actually split opinion in this household. I prefer the glossy back and the sort of sharper corners and lines of the Pixel 7a, but hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.